everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Great to be with you. Been out a few days, really dealing with some pollen issues. Didn't have a voice. Whatever. You don't need to know all of that. The bottom line is we are back, and I'm excited to begin a brand new teaching series today that we're going to call Seeking and Understanding. And so we're going to look at a few different topics through the course of this study. We're going to begin today in Proverbs chapter 2. One of the things that I'm seeing, especially here on social media, but whether it's YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, whoever, it doesn't matter, is there is an overabundance of information, especially as it pertains to matters of faith. Now, one may say, now, Pastor, wait a minute. I mean, how could we have too much Jesus? And I'll answer that question very bluntly. You can't if it's real. That's where the problem is so much of what is being offered has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with what the truth really is. It is a distortion, or it is merely an opinion, which, again, everything that is offered is an opinion to some degree. But what we find is when we get off the rails and we get down into just hardcore opinion, thoughts, rituals, traditions, what have you, then we get so far away from the truth, and we get so far away from the foundational principles of what we are called to understand, it gets lost. I mean, Jesus says in Revelation, into the letters of the church, which is a great series that we did back last year. I encourage you to go back and check that out. It's a 7-part series right here on this channel. But at the same time, he says to the church of Laodicea, you say that you have need of nothing. That's important. Why? Okay, because one could see that on the surface and say, well, you say I don't need anything, because people say that all the time, right? People say that all the time. Can I get you anything? No, I don't need anything. And they mean that as a courtesy. But Jesus stating that when he says, you say that you have need of nothing, that's a couple of different points in that. Number one, it's saying that you got it all figured out and you don't need anything, not even me, because you've got all the answers. But here's where it gets even worse. You say that you have need of nothing, so you stop looking. Once we ever stop looking, then we stop growing. Once we stop growing, we stop being effective. Okay? That is why the information that we receive is so important. I want to read to you Proverbs chapter 2. I'm going to specifically look at the first few verses. It says, my son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you. This requires that we have discernment. What am I storing up within me? Is it true? Is it speculation? Is there doubt there? All this stuff. Listening closely to wisdom. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. What have you learned? But even more importantly, what is the source of that learning? The source of your resource. Where is the information coming from? Because indeed, if the information that you are receiving is false, it cannot grow into wisdom because it is not applicable. I can't get my big words out today. But here what we see is understanding all of this is beginning to roll into discernment, which is going to be our first lesson. Why discernment matters. All right, so here the writer says, listening closely to wisdom and directing your heart to understanding. Furthermore, if you call out to insight and lift up your voice to understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure. What is he speaking about? Wisdom. How do we find it? You got to look for it. But before you can look for something, you got to know what you're looking for. If someone sends you to find, and we could just put pretty much anything in that blank, all right? But it's something you've never heard of before. Someone tells you to go find a certain kind of gem, or a certain kind of jewel, a certain type of piece of machinery. And it's not out of ignorance, as in dumbness. There's no nice way to put that. But rather out of, I don't have the knowledge of that. And you've never heard of it before, you've never seen it before, then you obviously don't know what to look for. That makes sense, right? That's where discernment comes in. If I don't know what I'm looking for, then I need to find out what it is. I need to do some research. We have an untold amount of information in front of us today. As I go back to my original statement, especially here on social media, you have, I don't even know the number. I would be scared to even put a number on it. How many people are doing this very same thing that I'm doing right here? But what they're sharing with you is their opinion. What they're sharing with you is their tradition. What they're sharing with you is what's been passed down. And we're all guilty. I've done the same thing. But where wisdom comes in is when knowledge is beginning to be received, true knowledge that allows it to grow into wisdom, which ultimately evolves into discernment to where I know that's not true. And that's not an arrogant thing. That's not a prideful thing. I know that's not true because of my personal relationship with God. Because that's not what it says. That's not what it means. And again, we're not talking about getting into an argument about interpretation, because that's a whole entirely different level of conversation that so many people get bogged down into, especially within the church, Bible translations and all this other stuff and what this means and that means. But if you just read what's there, friends, it's self-explanatory. If you have a proper relationship with God, it's just really, really not that hard. What happens is we begin to add stuff to it. Okay, it's like a good meal. It's like a good meal. Proper seasoning enhances the core, whatever it is, chicken, steak, whatever. All right, proper seasoning brings that out, and it makes it flavorful. But too much, it takes away. Too much says, well, that's okay, but it would be a whole lot better without all of that. And that's not being a minimalist as much as saying you're losing what's really there, the value of what's really there, the foundation. And so when you begin to pile on too much stuff, then you begin to cause confusion. And God is not the author of confusion. And that is what is so important about what is being said here. So if you seek for it like silver, search for it like hidden treasure, then, if and then is such an important principle within the confines of Scripture. Because God makes it clear, if you do this, then this will be the result. Whether it's learning, whether it's growing, whether it's seeing God. I mean, all these different things are there. If and then. It's a very simple thing. If you do this, then you will understand the fear of the Lord. And it gets even greater. And discover the knowledge of God. Why is that important? Because knowledge has to come before wisdom can be attained. That's real, okay? Regardless of one's spiritual maturity, believer, non-believer, whatever, if one does not have knowledge, they cannot obtain wisdom. It's not possible because you have to have one before the other. And here, Scripture is telling us very, very clearly, if we want the knowledge of God, if we want to have the wisdom and discernment that we're to have, we must first have the knowledge of God. How do we get there? You got to look for it. You have to seek it out. But the discernment that we're going to be looking at over these next several lessons is indeed, do you know what you're looking for? Do you know who you're looking for? Not the traditional model, not the denominational model, not what's been passed down over the years, that maybe it was grandma that said it, or maybe it was your church that said it, or what you've been told. Rather than what you've been told, I believe with all my heart, God is asking us, what do you know? And who told you that? Because if God didn't tell you that, if he didn't make it clear, then we've got room to work. I think this is going to be a great teaching series. I hope that it's going to be a blessing to you. I'm looking forward to it. Why does discernment matter? We'll be back with the next part of this lesson tomorrow right here at Making It Simple. God bless you.